There are places in this world where silence screams louder than words, where abandoned hallways remember more than the living do, and where sometimes help just doesn't come. This is the story of the night I broke into Pennhurst, and why I'll never ignore a whisper in the dark again. I never believed in the stories. You know, those old urban legends people love to toss around at bonfires, haunted asylums, ghostly cries, old patients still roaming the halls decades after they've died. I always thought it was just spooky campfire fluff. That was until I found myself standing in front of the broken iron gates of Pennhurst State School. It was a cold October night, the kind where the wind itself feels like it's watching you. Me and my two best friends, Jackson and Jules, had decided we were finally going to do it. Sneak into the most haunted place in Pennsylvania. We weren't ghost hunters or thrill seekers. We were YouTube junkies, chasing views, craving clicks. Jules had a drone, Jackson brought the night vision, and I had the idea. Our genius plan? Spend one night inside Pennhurst Asylum, stream the whole thing, go viral, make history. Simple. But as soon as I stepped over that rusted chain blocking the path, something felt wrong, like the air was too thick, like the night was holding its breath. We walked down the cracked concrete path toward the main building, its windows boarded up like it was trying to keep something in. Graffiti covered the walls, angry messages, devil symbols, and one word that stuck with me: stay. It was painted in red, dripping, almost fresh. We laughed it off until we heard it, a metallic rattle, followed by what sounded like an old-fashioned gurney wheel squeaking across tile. Jackson froze. Jules looked at me like I was supposed to explain what that was, but I had no words. Then we saw it, just a flash, at the far end of the hall, a shadow moving fast. We all bolted toward it because, again, clicks, right? But when we got there was nothing, only an open door, slowly creaking shut, and that's when I realized the door we just walked through had locked behind us. Jackson slammed his shoulder into the door. Once, twice, nothing. It wouldn't budge. It was like the building itself had swallowed us whole. No signal, Jules said, staring at his phone. Mine was dead. Jackson's too. We looked at each other, this weird silence passing between us, like even the air was listening. I say we film fast and get the hell out, I muttered. Jules nodded, but Jackson, he didn't say anything, just stared down the hallway like he saw something we didn't. We walked deeper. The halls were worse than I imagined. Paint peeled like old skin, wheelchairs overturned, beds rusting in place, vines sneaking through broken windows. There were rooms labeled in faded print: treatment ward A, isolation, hydrotherapy. And then we found it, a room full of patient files, thousands of them, scattered, torn. Some were burned at the edges, like someone had tried to destroy them and failed. I picked one up. The cover was cracked and yellow. It was for a patient named Eleanor M., age 12. Diagnosis: uncontrollable screaming. Prescribed sedation, ice bath, isolation. There was a photo stapled to it. She had no eyes. I dropped it instantly. My hand was shaking. Then Jules called from the next room. Guys, come see this. We followed him into what looked like an operating theater. A huge, rusted chair sat in the center, straps still attached. Above it, a single, flickering light. And something worse. A message scratched into the metal wall. The ambulance never came. Jackson read it out loud, and the moment he did, the light went out. We stood in pitch black. Then the sound came again. Squeak, squeak, squeak. That same gurney wheel. This time, closer. Jules flicked on his night vision cam. The screen was green and grainy, but we all saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the hallway, not moving, not blinking, just watching. It wore a patient gown, and then it ran straight at us. We ran like hell, but Jackson tripped, and when we turned back, he was gone. Jackson! My voice cracked as it echoed down the empty corridor. Nothing, not a single footstep, not even his voice. Just that damn sound again. Squeak, squeak. It was slower now, like it was circling us. Jules panted beside me, camera trembling in his hand. He was right behind us, man. He was right there. I scanned the hallway. It felt smaller now, like the building had shifted, like the walls were breathing. We have to find him, I said, but my gut was screaming otherwise. Jules hesitated, then pointed at a side door. Records archive restricted. It had been kicked open. Inside, rows of filing cabinets lined the room like graves. Most were empty, but one drawer hung open with a single file inside. It was Eleanor again. Only this time, the picture was different. Older, pale, and still eyeless. But something new was scrawled across the folder in red marker, smeared and angry. Do not move her. The rest of the pages detailed her death, or rather, her disappearance. In 1953, during a power outage, Eleanor vanished from her locked room. No staff admitted seeing her. No body was ever recovered, just a trail of blood leading into the basement. Jules swallowed hard. You think Jackson? Before he could finish, the door slammed shut behind us. We spun. Silence. No wind. No footsteps. But then, the lights flickered, and for half a second, we saw her behind the glass window of the records room. A girl, no eyes, smiling, head tilted like a broken doll. She was there, then gone. Jules screamed and kicked the door open. We stumbled into the hallway, gasping. But something was off. The walls had changed. No more peeling wallpaper. No graffiti. Now it was clean, sterile, lit with that old amber glow like in a 1950s hospital. We weren't in our time anymore. Somehow, the building had pulled us into its memory. Down the hallway, we saw nurses walking calmly, orderlies pushing gurneys. None of them noticed us. And down at the end was Jackson, or something that looked like him. His back was turned, and he was holding someone's hand, a small hand. He turned slowly, but where his eyes should have been was nothing. And just like that, I knew Eleanor wasn't alone anymore. She had found someone to stay. I remember the night air tasting different at Pennhurst, like dust and copper, the kind of scent you taste before blood. Jackson and I were back in the van, engine off, parked half a mile from the main gate. We hadn't said much since the basement. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was loaded, thick like wet concrete. I could see it in his eyes. He was rattled, but I wasn't sure if it was from what we saw, or what we didn't. I'm not going back in there, Jackson muttered, breaking the silence. You don't have to. I lied, because deep down, I already knew I wasn't done. Something about that building. It called to you. I went back the next night, alone. This time, I brought more than just a flashlight and curiosity. I had holy water, a crucifix, a flare, and a GoPro. If I was going to die in there, at least my story would go viral. The place looked different. The air wasn't just cold anymore. It was vibrating, like the walls were humming with some sick kind of joy. I stepped inside the west wing, which had always been sealed off due to asbestos risks, but the padlock was broken now. Inside, it looked untouched. Beds still lined the walls, sheets yellowed with time, and above each bed, names: Marjorie, Luca, Felix, Caleb, children. The names of children who never left. And then I heard it. Not a scream, not a whisper, a giggle. A child's giggle echoing off the rusted beds and chipped paint like it was stuck on repeat. I backed up, slowly, then turned to run. And standing at the door was a boy, no older than 7, dressed in what looked like a hospital gown. His face was wrong, like someone tried to sketch a child from memory, but forgot what joy looked like. He raised one hand and pointed behind me. I turned, and every bed was filled. Lying there were dozens of patients, some children, some adults, all pale, all motionless, except their mouths. Each one was whispering, together, a chorus of static and nonsense. I don't remember much of what happened next, except that I screamed, louder than I ever had in my life. But the moment I did, they stopped, all at once, and then, in perfect unison, they sat up. I bolted, sprinting back through the hallways, back through the rusted cafeteria, slipping on God knows what that coated the floor. I could hear them now, bare feet slapping tile behind me. Not fast, just certain, relentless. I reached the main entrance, but the doors were gone, just concrete, solid, like they'd never existed. And then I heard her, the voice. You fed them, didn't you? I spun around, the nurse, the same one from the painting, now standing flesh and blood in front of me, holding a rusted 4-pole like a staff. You let them remember, she hissed. I didn't understand, but then I looked down and realized my GoPro was still recording. They'd seen their own faces again. The patients, they remembered who they were. And now, they weren't going back to sleep, not quietly. I'll stop here for now, but don't go far, because the next scene I meet the doctor. And let's just say, death isn't the worst thing he's known for. If this story is messing with your head already, just wait. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, it's about to get unholy. I stopped dead in my tracks. There, at the edge of the hallway, stood Jackson. His face was wrong. It was as if someone had taken a photo of him and tried to recreate him from memory. The proportions were just slightly off. His eyes were too wide, his smile too full, frozen unnaturally in place like a mannequin. His skin shimmered under the flickering hallway lights, too pale, too smooth, too lifeless. He didn't move. He just stood there, watching me. My voice cracked. Jackson? Nothing. I took a cautious step forward. Is it really you? His smile twitched, then slowly widened, unnaturally naturally until it stretched across his cheeks in a grotesque grin. That wasn't Jackson. I backed away slowly, bumping into the wall. I reached into my coat pocket and fumbled with the phone. Still no signal. My heartbeat was thunderous in my ears. Then, the hallway changed. The walls rippled like water. Paint peeled away like skin. The lights exploded one by one, plunging me into stuttering darkness with each burst. The floorboards beneath my feet groaned like they were being twisted by something beneath them. I turned and ran. The hall stretched on longer than it should have, like the building itself was refusing to let me go. My footsteps echoed in slow motion. Doors slammed shut as I passed them, and something or someone chased just a few steps behind, never close enough to see, but always close enough to feel. Then I saw a faint light coming from the stairwell ahead. I sprinted harder than I ever had before, bursting through the doorway, down into the stairwell, and slammed the heavy metal door behind me. I was panting, dripping in sweat, and then I heard it whispering, coming from behind the door I'd just shut. Dozens of voices chanting my name, Ian, 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 and beneath it all, Jackson's voice, softer than a breath, but close, right next to my ear. You never left me. Suddenly, the lights in the stairwell shut off, and I was no longer alone. The stairwell went pitch black. I pressed my back against the cold wall, trying to slow my breath. The whispering had stopped, but silence was worse, at least with the voices. I knew something was there. Now, it was just me and the dark. Until the screaming started. It wasn't human. It echoed from deep within the building, distorted, layered, like dozens of mouths crying out in agony at once. And then, beneath it all, the sound of wheels scraping across concrete, metal, heavy, slow. A gurney? I felt for the stair railing and began to descend, one trembling step at a time. My hands shook with each step. My flashlight flickered back to life for half a second, just long enough to show me the walls, now covered in childlike drawings, made with something dark and brownish red. Stick figures, all headless. One was labeled Ian. I stumbled backward and then heard the groan of hinges. A door below me creaked open. A dim green light poured from it, like fog. I had no choice but to follow. The basement. The air was thick, metallic. My throat burned. I crept through rusted shelves, toppled wheelchairs, and rotting patient files. I turned a corner, then stopped. There was a room. In the middle of it, the source of the green glow. An ancient overhead surgical lamp flickering. Under it was the gurney, and lying on the gurney was Jackson. His real body, lifeless, pale, his chest unmoving, his wrists bruised from restraints. Next to him, a figure in an old paramedic uniform stood, its face hollow, jaw slack, staring at nothing. It turned to me. You never called, it rasped, so I never came. I tried to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. The paramedic moved toward me, floating more than walking. The room spun. I backed up, stumbled, fell. My vision blurred, and then I woke up in the woods outside Pennhurst, alone, drenched in sweat, freezing, gasping. My phone buzzed. One new voicemail from an unknown number. I played it. Jackson's voice. Ian, I was waiting. Why didn't you call the ambulance? Then static. To this day, I don't know how I got out. The building was sealed shut when authorities checked it, but every year on that same night, I get a voicemail, same number, same words, and I never called the ambulance, because by the time I did, it was already too late.